I thought it was a flat brim when I pulled it out of the box. I was telling you, Uncle Kevin, I was like,
just gotta curve it.
I can't be wearing this. It's a flat brim.
We mentioned I'm a fat kid at heart, right? It's like the worst day in grade school was like shirts versus skins, and I'm like,
at least you're not wearing your hat like this, like
Snyder
does, and you can't even see his eyes.
Dude, like, it's all about covering the eyebrows.
See, everyone,
you been in that brim now?
Yeah.
You're more, Aaron. Let's face it. You're more like redneck brim, where it's curved so far that you can't like see.
I don't want to see anything coming from the left and right. I have ninja type abilities, so there's no reason to see over there.
This is the third year that Arizona since they changed the preference point system, and so now those odds of drawing as a non-resident or being in that complete lottery section where you have a chance, that's gone way up.
I think we harvested over $20 on the Kaibab alone just this year on mule deer.
The land in Arizona that is that holds elk and mule deer, antelope, is public property. So you don't have to worry about private property trespass, which keeps the fees significantly less than other areas.
Right.
This is the thing. So you're saying that, some people don't have the pocketbook to hire a guide or an outfitter. We actually saw that, and there's a lot of DIY guys that, want, local knowledge, but they don't want necessarily your help, or they just want you to get them kind of in that rough ballpark area or how to hunt the unit or whatever the case may be. Well, we started doing scouting packages probably – 5 years ago now?
Well, I think that's what helps, like being able to talk to guys like you. What units should I apply for? And this is a sort of experience I'm looking for. This is the years, I want to be able to do it in 2 years. I want to be able to do it this year, in 5 years. This is the type of animal I want to chase. They can get all of that just by, giving you guys a call and figuring that out.
Yeah.
All right, folks. Welcome to the Gritty Bowman podcast. I am joined today by my uncle, Kevin Call of High Point Outfitters, and his partner, John Adams. And, you guys have been on the podcast a few times. And it's this time of year again that the Arizona Fish and Wildlife, you guys have draw deadlines coming up. It's that time of year to talk about those deadlines and the opportunities that Arizona offers for hunters to get out in the field and do some great hunting. So I wanted to get together and do our annual show. And so let's just get started off right away on the deadlines that are coming up.
Brian, Arizona has made a few changes this year on application deadlines. If you're going to do it by paper, it has to be in by January 30th. Now, I don't know anybody would do a paper application, but apparently there are some still that are doing paper applications. There's probably only going to be another few years before they just kill that completely. But anyway, paper applications have to be in by Tuesday, January 30th. But let's forget about that deadline because I think everybody is going to do it online. Mm-hmm. And online remains the same year after year. It's the second Tuesday in February. So this year is February 13th. So kind of tuck that away. Every second Tuesday in February is our deadline for elk and antelope. And then the application deadline, there you go. Application for the deer and sheep applications are the second Tuesday in June. And so we have kind of a split application period. Elk and antelope is the second Tuesday in February. Sheep and deer are second Tuesday in June.
Okay. All right, so there's a little time for some of the other species. Do you recommend people just apply, though, all at once, like now, or?
You can apply for deer and sheep and all of those application periods are not open, so you actually can't apply. So the only thing you can apply for right now, and actually the application period online isn't even open yet. It will become open. The regulations just came out online, as John was showing you. But the application period, probably in the next couple of weeks, you'll be able to apply. You'll be able to get on and actually apply. And I do send out emails, reminders of when that application period is open, and then also a deadline. If anybody wants to be a part of that reminder email process that High Point Outfitters does, you can certainly send an email to shoot. So SHOOT, shoot at highpointoutfitters.net. Or you can go on our website at highpointoutfitters.net, and there's a contact form there. You can send an email. But I will add you to our email lists and remind you of the deadlines and stuff. So that's another way to, not to miss a deadline. Arizona is one of the first states, running out of the gate with their application process.
So there's a lot of people who think, when they think Arizona, they think elk, they think mule deer, but I think they also think I have no chance to draw. Like that's great and all. I'd love to hunt Arizona, but it's kind of out of realm of possibility. So
yeah. We've had a few of your listeners actually last year come and hunt with us this year. They heard your podcast last year and actually came and contacted us. We made sure they put in for the draw. And even some of them came for the over-the-counter hunts, so the archery deer hunts. So just to go to show you that if you're thinking that Arizona's that way, it's not. There are plenty of trophy hunts that you do have a slight chance to draw, but there's also a bunch of other hunts that are easy draw hunts where you can draw them 1-2 years. You can even draw them your first year. You can draw them in 5 years. You can draw them. It all depends on what you're into. Me and Kevin were actually talking about this last week about how people, we're spoiled here in Arizona. We look at a 380 class bull that you're finally, getting to that age class. You know what I mean? And other people are just coming to, hunt a bull or they just want to see antlers, like a spike might do it for them or whatever. You can draw one of those hunts probably your very first year. We even have, deprivation hunts here in Arizona that you can draw over the counter for elk. There's archery deer hunts. There's archery deer hunting going on right now. Last week, actually, one of your podcasts, what was his name?
Kevin.
Kevin actually came to Arizona last week and shot an archery deer with one of our guides, Matt, just last week.
Awesome.
And he actually he booked for 7 days and he shot it on the third day. Yeah. Shot his deer on the third day. So, Arizona has plenty of opportunities to come and hunt over the counter. But yes, there are hunts out there that are very hard to draw.
Brian, we had 2 gritty guys last year draw. One only had 2 points. The other guy had no points, and they came and hunted with us last year. So that's, just got to get in and apply. Get in to apply.
Yeah, I think one thing, I just published a podcast yesterday with Phil Mendoza, and here in Colorado, he owns No Limits Archery, and he's the mastermind of the Alpha Bow Hunting Challenge, and he's a great hunter, great archer, and we were talking about making the shot in the moment of truth, and we have a new podcast coming out soon about hunting private land versus public land. There's a stigma kind of at times in the broad hunting community, a stigma attached to hunting on private land versus hunting public land. And I think that's pretty stupid. Also, I think there's a stigma attached to hunting with a guide, among a lot of DIY type of guys. But Phil made a point on the podcast where he said, if you haven't hunted elk or you haven't hunted out west, mule deer, let's say, there's certainly a lot to be said for just DIY, get yourself down there and do it all by yourself, right? But the learning curve is absolutely much faster if you hire a guide. And he's like, I'm a big fan of hiring guides, and especially if you haven't been out here in the West before, you can learn a lot from someone who has chased or pursued a certain species that you've never hunted, or hunted terrain and country that you've never been in. And so I think it's a great opportunity for people to get out there and do this. That said, there's just a dollar limitation. Like, there's people who just don't have the funds to pull off a guided hunt, because you're paying for that guide's expert services. So my question is, what kind of ballpark, expense are we talking about to work with, like, High Point and other outfitters in Arizona?
Let me do two things, and then John can. You brought up two good points. First of all, Arizona virtually has no private property. Okay, so there's really unlimited space in Arizona, and I don't know the exact figures, but it's probably 98% of the land in Arizona that holds elk and mule deer, antelope, is public property. So you don't have to worry about private property trespass, which keeps the fees significantly less than other areas,
right,
in the West, because you're doing a trespass fee as well. So virtually the fees are, there's no private property in Arizona.
There is, but I mean, it's not.
There's an access fee, and everybody brings up the Boquillas Ranch, and we talked maybe a little bit about the Boquillas, and we ought to touch real quick on that. For example, Unit 10, half of Unit 10 is encompassed within the Boquillas Ranch. The access fee is $80 for a hunter. So to me, that's fairly minimal. It is certainly not $3,000 or $4,000 like some of the access fees in other Western states. So, but really, that's the only place that we hunt in High Point Outfitters that has a private property access fee, and it's $80. Everything else is completely free and public to hunt. So
I did not know that at all. I didn't know that. That's interesting. So I did know that pretty much if you want here in Arizona, by and large, you want to hit one of those primo units, you've got to draw.
That's correct.
Much. There's no, you're not going to just be able to, like in Montana, I can just go buy a tag off of some landowner every year.
100% of Arizona's elk tags, all of our big game tags, are all done in the lottery draw. Unless you want to spend $350,000 for an auction tag, which there are two auction tags. So most people are out of that realm. So basically you're in a random draw. Real quick, 20% of the tags go in a preference draw system, or those with the most bonus points. So it's a pure preference point, just like in Colorado. So whoever has the most points get those tags. The other 80% are completely done in a random draw. So that's how all the tags are allocated, 80% in a random, 20% in a preference. There is a 10% cap for non-residents. Half of that 10% cap goes in the preference draw. The other half goes in the random draw. So that's how your listeners last year with no points actually drew a fantastic tag in the random draw. Didn't have to worry about having a bunch of points. They didn't draw a preference tag. They drew a random tag. And so that's kind of how that Arizona tags are allocated.
So while we're on this subject of drawing a tag and applying, a couple years ago, this is the third year, we were talking about this before we started the podcast. This is the third year that Arizona since they changed the preference point system. And so now those odds of drawing as a non-resident or being in that complete lottery section where you have a chance, that's gone way up.
Yeah, before the change, you had zero chance at a lot of our tags. Zero chance unless you were in the preference draw. But now you do have a chance for any tag in the state. In the random draw, you can draw any tag in the state, so you do have an opportunity. We're seeing more of our out-of-state hunters are drawing random tags than they are preference tags.
Now, in order to apply and in order to draw a tag, you must buy, like, what's the cost here to, let's say, apply for, what's the total cost to apply for elk, mule deer, and antelope?
This is the thing. So you're saying that, some people don't have the pocketbook to hire a guide or an outfitter. We actually saw that, and there's a lot of DIY guys that, want, local knowledge, but they don't want necessarily your help, or they just want you to get them kind of in that rough ballpark area, or how to hunt the unit, or whatever the case may be. Well, we started doing scouting packages probably, 5 years ago now?
Mm-hmm.
5 years ago now. And we haven't set the price this year, but I mean, we actually did quite a few scouting packages last year where the guy comes from Montana or whatever and comes to Arizona. He wants to do a over-the-counter archery deer tag. He wants to know, where we think he would be best off, what unit, what time to come and hunt, sit water, or where good glassing points are at, or how proficient he needs to be with his bow, or how many days he needs to come. There's a bunch of that type of stuff. If he's bringing a camp, where he should set up his camp, or if we're putting him in a unit where it's close to town, should he do a hotel?
I remember Anthony, his daughter drew a tag up there, and they went up, and he called me. He's hunting there for a couple days, and he's like, man, we're not seeing any elk, and man, I didn't have time to scout it. I don't know what to do. And I'm like, you need to call Kevin, dude. You talk to John, you just call him up, And so he reached out to you guys. You guys basically did like a scouting package, told him where to be, where to go. Yeah. Yes. He got the Gritty Bowman, friend hookup
discount card. Yeah. His promotional discount card in.
But what he told me when he got home was, dude, in hindsight, I would have paid for that in a heartbeat, because up front.
Middle of that hunt, I remember, he ended up calling me. Yeah. I think we met for dinner or something like that with his daughter.
And I had
like 2 or 3 days left, and he was on elk those last 2 or 3 days. I don't know.
He told me he got your help, about halfway through the hunt, and he's like, and he's always been a hardcore DIY guy, and a lot of experience elk hunting too, like his whole life. That said, he's like, Brian, if I were not your friend, and now that I know what I know, I would gladly have paid John, for the assistance he gave me to put me in the right place. It was worth every penny. After spending the amount of money he did to get to Arizona, and the tag and all that kind of stuff, it was just a little bit incrementally more that would have helped him come back really successful. And so he's like, man, I'll never look at this kind of help in the old way that I used to. I'll always be looking for this kind of assistance in the future.
Yeah.
What's the difference, I guess, if you hunt Colorado and I contact you to say, hey, where should I go and get some information from you? I'm not paying for it, but that's kind of the same assistance that we provide. We're just a local company here in Flagstaff, Arizona, surrounded by elk country, mule deer country. We provide assistance and help.
And Kevin,
we have to limit the number of people that we can help, of course, and it depends on how many people we have in the field that we're guiding and what unit it is, etc. So it all changes and it is real fluid, but we can certainly help out in most situations.
For those who haven't followed an earlier podcast with the two of you on here, I mean, real quick, Kevin, how long have you been hunting Arizona and in these areas that you guide?
Well, I've been hunting since the 70s. John and I are both raised right here in Flagstaff, so we've been hunting Flagstaff our whole life. I've got a few years on John, so you can see by the hairline I've got a few years on Johnny. But so since the 70s, of course, elk weren't even on the San Francisco peaks in the 70s. We were only hunting mule deer, so the elk have just really taken over a lot of our units. And are really strong. A lot of our mule deer habitat is not what it used to be. We hunt the Kaibab. We hunt 12A, 12B. Those are the only units that we guide in. The only units that we hunt mule deer on the rifle draw tags.
Okay.
We do archery over the counter here around Flagstaff. But anyway, for a while.
So back to let's say a guy wants to apply just for the application. Let's say he actually doesn't draw this year, but what's it going to cost for him just to play the game? Get an elk tag, get a deer tag, get a pronghorn tag.
That's a good question. Okay, so it's $160 for a non-resident hunting and fishing license. Okay, so you have to purchase the license before you can actually apply. And then it's $7 per species. So $7 for elk, $7 for antelope, $7 for sheep, $7 for mule deer, etc. So $160 before you can actually apply, and then $7 for every species you put in. So, is that expensive? I don't know. The nice thing about the $160 license is you can come and use that license. You can come quail hunting. You can go fishing. You can, duck hunt. You can archery deer hunt. You can, put in for javelina and javelina hunt. There's a lot of opportunities, a lot of small game. The quail hunting, it can be fantastic in Arizona. So there's a lot of opportunity for hunting if you want to come.
Okay, so let's say a guy does his application, and he gets a point, for elk, mule deer, and pronghorn.
Okay.
But he doesn't draw, right? He goes in for the lottery. You should always, by the way, if you're applying for Arizona, always apply for a unit, never just a preference point. I mean, because it's always a straight up lottery chance.
But let me say one thing. We had a new change that went into effect last year that with your scenario. Mm-hmm. To me, always put in, and if for some reason you draw and you can't come, okay, if for some reason you can't come, make sure you purchase a point guard. So if you can't come, you get your points back with point guard. I think it's $5 per species for point guard. And if you can't come, you get your bonus, all your points back, and then you also collect a point as if you put in and didn't draw. So you're right back to where you were, and it only costs $5 per species. So to me, go for the home runs. Try to get a tag, and if for some reason you get a tag and can't come, well, then you're back right where you were before, and it only costs you $5 with point guard. That's new in effect last year.
That's legit because in Colorado, you can turn your tag in before a certain date, but you don't get a point for that year. You lose your point, and you don't get your money back either. So if you decide to get your money back, then you lose all your points.
You do lose your money for the tag that year in Arizona,
okay,
but you do retain all your points, and you collect a point.
Okay,
is what Arizona point guard is doing.
That's pretty legit. So,
yeah.
But let's say a guy does that. Okay, he does it. He gets a point for antelope, elk, mule deer. Now he's sitting there with an Arizona hunting license.
Right.
What is some things that he can go and do with that, like specifically?
He can come and over the counter archery hunt, archery deer hunt, archery coos hunt.
What are those over the counter archery opportunities?
They're awesome. He can hunt all the main units throughout the year. Every single unit, I mean, what is a archery deer tag?
315, is that what it said?
Yeah, $315. That's what that guy did just last week. paid $315, came down here and shot a mule deer. His very first mule deer, very first archery kill. He had a great hunt. But he was from California, I believe. And, he can also, there's leftover javelina tags. He can come down and hunt javelina. He can, buy a deprivation elk hunt, which they're pretty crappy. Usually you're just maybe shooting a cow elk, but that might be something that you'd want to do.
Mm-hmm.
There is leftover coos deer tags all the time. He can hunt rifle coos deer tag down south by the border. So many activities, Brian. Just come to Arizona.
Yeah, all of our small game, and not to promote another podcast, but Randy Newberg came last year in January. He's got a YouTube. Go out on YouTube and look and see all the stuff that he hunted with that Arizona tag. He comes, I guess, every year in January in archery coos hunts, and then kills ducks, quail, javelina, whatever else he decides. But that gives some folks some ideas of what's available.
And that was Randy Newberg's episode from last year. Was it on?
Yeah.
Okay. I can find it on YouTube. I could probably put it in the show notes.
Yeah.
And so he goes down there and he hunts, or what was it? What did he hunt last year? Elk?
Archery coos hunt. Yeah, he did archery deer. And you can kill either coos or mule deer. But then he killed, he killed ducks, quail, and they saw some pigs. I'm not sure he had a pig tag, but that's what's in Southern California, or Southern Arizona.
Awesome. I've wanted to go down there and hunt elk, or hunt mule deer rather. Hunt mule deer in Arizona for a while, and we've talked about units that take 1 or 2 points to draw with killer mule deer hunting opportunities. So can you describe what some of those are?
Again, most of our units are over the counter, so you don't have to draw. The Kaibab 12A, 12B, you do have to draw, and as a non-resident, to guarantee that tag, you're looking at 6 points. Okay, as a resident, you're looking at 4 points for to be able to draw that Kaibab tag, archery Kaibab tag. Most of our units are just over the counter. 3A, 3C is another archery tag that you have to draw. But High Point Outfitters guides in 12A, 12B up on the Kaibab for the archery hunts, and then the over-the-counter hunts right here around Flagstaff. Unit 9, Unit 10, Unit 7, all these units have archery over-the-counter.
There is a lot of archery opportunities in Arizona. Over-the-counter archery opportunities.
Yep.
So
for deer, there's a lot over-the-counter for deer. Yes.
So for coos and mule deer. So what kind of buck can a guy expect to have opportunity at getting on an over-the-counter archery elk tag or archery deer tag, over-the-counter archery deer tag in Arizona?
So last week, there's 200-inch bucks. 180-inch bucks that people have already. I saw a 200-inch buck last week with my over-the-counter archery deer tag. I was 60 yards from him, and I couldn't seal the deal. It got too dark on me. But that's the type of bucks that you have an opportunity to kill with the over-the-counter tag. There's people that are shooting 170-inch, 180-inch type bucks. I don't think anybody's killed a 200-inch buck with their bow yet. Not that I've seen or heard about, but there's been a handful of 170 to 180-inch bucks already killed in the last week with these over-the-counter hunts going on right now. Plenty of 2 points, plenty of 3 points, spikes. Right now at the beginning of the year, it hurts. I've done it. I learned my lesson the hard way. Probably like 10 years ago or something like that. I shot an over-the-counter buck in January, like a little 2x3, and I had to sit out the entire year not hunting mule deer. So if you're going to shoot one in January, make sure it's going to be a stud buck or something that you're going to be, happy with. But whenever it comes to, the draw, you have to do a bonus point. And then when, you're sitting out all December, all of August when they're in velvet. So, usually December is whenever those 2 points, 3 points, stuff like that are in trouble. You know what I mean? Always make the excuse, well, it kind of looked at me funny, or they always use their kid as an excuse. I had my son with me, and I wanted to shoot the spike. It's like, dude, don't use your kid. It was just fun. Like if a spike looks at me funny in December, he might get it.
I've had this conversation with Aaron a few times, and I mentioned it on the podcast. There's that old axiom where hunters say, never pass up an animal on the first day that you would be happy with on the last day. And I'm like, that is the dumbest statement I've ever heard in my life. Like, the first day, what I feel like chasing, as far as age class goes, dramatically decreases each day I'm on the hunt. And my happiness factor on the last day with anything that's legal is pretty solid. And so
we've taken plenty of clients out that you would think that would be the case, like they're passing up, great respectable animals in the first couple of days, and you're like, I'm not the one to sit there and lower my standards. That was his standards when he booked. Like, let's hunt for whatever. If he had a 380 class bull on his mind when he came and booked, let's hunt for that 380 class bull. And you'll pass up 350 bulls, 360 bulls. But I've also been on the other end of the spectrum where I want a 380 class bull, and opening morning, you're like trying to hold him off a trigger on a 330 bull. It's like, dude, where did the guy come that was talking big game from like Utah, or like talking a big game from North Dakota or something, that came down here and was like, dude, I want a 380 class bull, and you put a 330 class bull screaming in front of them, and they're like, dude, get out of my way, I'm shooting this thing.
Well,
and you're like, and that's I scouted hard to put you in front of a 380 class bull. We're 5 minutes into the hunt, and he's like, well, this is what God produced us with, and I'm hammered. It's like, dude, come on.
Yeah, I absolutely, I think that's it comes down to personal choice and moment to moment and hunt to hunt. What I'm willing to shoot, for example, in Colorado with my bow up at 10,000 feet after 2 weeks of hunting is a lot different than what I want to hunt on a private land tag over an alfalfa field in Montana. It's like everything changes all the time, and it's fluid. It's from day to day. So I don't have some sort of particular like, this is what I always do, and here's my here's the sort of animal I just am out to do what I want to do and enjoy my time out there. So it sounds like Arizona has some great options for everyone. It's interesting you bring up Randy Newberg. I was talking to Randy, and we were just talking about opportunities in Arizona, and the one of the things that he mentioned was the state of Arizona would like people to understand that there are a lot of hunt opportunities that outside of just elk and mule deer that are undervalued by the broad public. They just aren't looked at, and that with that hunting license, you have the ability to go out and chase some pretty good critters. And now, based on there's for mule deer, there's opportunity. I mean, if you can go out into an area, and it's not saying that everyone would be successful, but if you go out into an area where there are bona fide 200-inch bucks on an over-the-counter hunt, that there's a possibility you find one and can get a shot at it. And this isn't like just like some kind of like, well, there's always a 200-inch buck somewhere in every unit. And this is like, you see them, they're out there. This is not like 1 in a million kind of thing that you're talking about. These are, you guys, Arizona manages their wildlife in such a way that you got some big old critters.
in some spots they manage. Other spots are
Opportunity.
no, not even that. It's just like, how can you offer like 1,500 bull tags in one unit? I mean, you're crazy. You know what I mean? But yeah, Game and Fish does do good with some units for managing game class and some units to get a tag in Arizona.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if that makes sense. And it's not even, you get a tag in that unit, you're going to have great opportunity. It's just you got an Arizona elk tag or whatever. You know what I mean? So,
well, I think that's what helps, like being able to talk to guys like you. What units should I apply for? And this is a sort of experience I'm looking for. This is the years, I want to be able to do it in 2 years. I want to be able to do it this year, in 5 years. This is the type of animal I want to chase. They can get all of that just by, giving you guys a call and figuring that out.
Yeah. There's people that we help out that all of a sudden it goes from, whenever they call, it's like, okay, they want a trophy bull or whatever, and this is what it's going to take. And instantly they're like, I put the quality of the hunt over the quality of the animal. You know what I mean? Like, let's just get me in a unit. Like, I just want to come to Arizona and hunt, well, okay, then let's do this, and they usually have a great hunt, you know what I mean? Or at least meet their expectations of what they're coming for. Not everybody's coming to Arizona to hunt a 380 class bull or whatever. But if you do come to Arizona, and you might see a 380 class bull on a crappy hunt. You know what I mean?
For archers, I think there's a lot of opportunity in Arizona to get out on over-the-counter options. Even with limited points, I mean, 5 years, 4 years is not very long to hunt a great mule deer unit, where some states you're waiting much, much longer, 10, 12 years. So, so the opportunity for archery is that's cool, and the over-the-counter opportunity on mule deer. What are the success rates on these over-the-counter hunts?
You know what? Let me see if I can pull that up so I don't misspeak, because now our success rates are much higher than
for sure
others, but the state,
and it's not required to turn your harvest information at. So the Game and Fish is pretty much throwing guesses out. Me personally have never turned one of their cards in until they start requiring it. First, if I harvest an animal, I don't want them to show that unit is good. Do you see what I'm saying? So that way I'm fighting that many more people for that unit the following year. Do you see what I'm saying? So, like, I don't know. I think they should make it a requirement to turn in your success. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think it's a better game management process for sure. But, Arizona may not need to do that based on the way it's built. They might be able to assess, herd dynamics and sizes without the harvest data. I don't really know.
It's not published, but my guess would be about 25% on the archery hunt on the Kaibab, and probably around 15 or 20% in the units right here around Flagstaff.
Which I think is pretty. That's pretty typical across the board for public land over-the-counter hunts, archery, whether it's elk or deer. Pretty much that's just an archery average in general. Like a little bit better unit where it takes a few points to draw, you can get as high as 25% success with a bow. And on other units where it's over the counter, 15% is pretty normal. Of course, the more skilled you are as a hunter and an archer, those odds you're in that 10% or that 15% or 25. But yeah, it's certainly not a guarantee with archery equipment. It never is. It's just the nature of the game. But what I think people need to realize, what hunters need to realize, is that when you go on hunts like this, like over the counter Colorado elk hunt, for example, you almost always have an opportunity. That's the thing.
Oh
You
yeah,
almost
green arrows.
always,
Yeah,
yeah, you
sure.
almost always get that shot. And what more can a kind of hunter ask for than a chance? It's just capitalizing on that chance that separates that 15% or 25% from the rest of the hunters out there. And I think that comes from experience and time spent at the range and shooting your bow. And it's that comes from, you just can't replace the experience. So getting out there and chasing those animals. What I hate to see is a guy that says, well, I'm going to hold out, and after 8 years, I'm going to draw this archery mule deer tag. But in the meantime, he's not out there trying every year, right? He's not honing the skills. You draw that tag and you don't have the skills, it's kind of counterproductive because it's hard to capitalize on it. So
especially with archery equipment, so critical to get out there and use your equipment. I mean, just as a contrast, we're probably running about 50% on our archery hunts on the Kaibab. Okay, we're 100% for the last 10 years on the rifle hunt on the Kaibab, on early and late hunts, 100%. We've never had a tag not fill on the rifle hunts. So, I mean, that's just the difference
yeah,
between,
difference between having someone helping you out and doing it all solo on your own.
Yeah.
Having a guide and someone who knows the area and the country. You've been there since the
I think
70s.
we
You're old
had.
as dirt, Kevin.
Was that?
I said you've been there since the 70s. You're old as dirt.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. We love the Kaibab. I mean, the Kaibab is doing excellent. Not to segue, but the Kaibab is doing excellent right now. We've got some phenomenal. We took some great bucks this year. Of course, it's hard to beat 100% success, but it's doing really well right now. Right now would be a great time to have a Kaibab archery tag or a rifle tag.
And I think we had over 20. I think we harvested over 20 bucks on the Kaibab alone just this year on mule deer.
And the nice thing about Arizona is you can do a rifle hunt first choice, go, with home run swing your first chance, do 12A West late hunt in November, which is is the best hunt. We feel like the best hunt in the state for rutting mule deer. Number one, and then number two, you could put an archery tag, so you can mix and match with your draw application system. You can do a rifle tag first and an archery hunt second, and have an excellent chance at draw and be able to hunt either equipment.
Can you get an over-the-counter tag that doesn't affect your points? Can you do both there?
Yeah, that Kate. They're two different tags. One's issued in the draw, and that's where if you're unsuccessful in the draw, that's where you get your points. The over-the-counter archery tag is a calendar year tag. It runs from January through December, so it's a calendar year tag, and that has nothing to do with the tags issued in the draw. So they're completely different tags. You can actually have two deer tags, for example, in your pocket. You can draw a tag and you can buy one over the counter archery, but you can only kill one deer per calendar year, even if you draw. So there are two different tags, two different systems. And of course, over the counter, there's no bonus point process, just the draw tags. So you can actually do two tags a year.
That's cool. That's cool because that's what I was wondering if you can, because in Oregon I can accumulate points while also still hunting every year with archery equipment. So a guy can sit here and go, okay, my long-term goal is 6 points or 5 points to get into the Kaibab, but every year I'm gonna go over the counter and get better at archery.
Yeah, that's perfect. And you can hunt over the counter. You can hunt January, August, and December, and a little bit in September. So really, you have 3 or 4 months there that you can do your over the counter archery deer tag. And if you draw, October, November hunt with a rifle or an archery equipment, you can do that as well. But every year you can hunt deer 3 months out of the year in Arizona.
That's pretty sweet. That's pretty sweet. So let's talk a little bit briefly about those awesome deer that you guys love, which some call cows and some call coos. Dude, there's some killer coos deer opportunity in Arizona. But John, your head's shaking a little bit.
Dude, we're getting on this again. Okay, so yes, and some people call them carp. The carp deer. So yeah, no, there are you can also draw one, like you were talking about. You can also pick up one of the late coos deer tags after they're gone through the draw process and not lose any of your points. So you can pick up a leftover tag, they call them, and you can get one of those deer tags. But wouldn't you rather go over the counter archery deer on a mule deer over a coos deer? I mean, come on.
Everybody's a little.
I've killed one mule deer in my life, and I have yet to even think about going back for him.
One coos
deer in my life, and that's it.
Yeah, I think I'm kind of fascinated by coos deer and I definitely want to go hunt some. I know there's a whole community of people who are fanatical about it, like some about blacktail, you know. So the point is, there's great opportunity in Arizona for that, and Ben chases them all the time. Ben Sandel, right?
Oh yeah, he's fascinated with those coos deer. Who cares about the coos deer, man?
Tell me about
he hunts where there's mule deer and there's coos deer, and it's whatever's coming in he's shooting.
Yeah, he killed a mule deer this year.
He killed a mule deer and he was in coos, and he was trying to kill a coos deer. So yeah. I mean, come on now, Ben.
That's something that's
and
interesting.
He's posted more pictures on his Instagram of his mule deer than he has of his previous coos deer, just to go to show you that he does like mule deer over coos deer.
Well, I think for me, it's if I have a elk tag and a deer tag in my pocket, and at the same time, I'm shooting whichever one comes in that I get the opportunity on. So, yeah. And you can do that in Arizona with coos and
most of the time it's any antler deer. Yep.
Yep. Okay. And then so draw strategies. What do you think people should apply for unit wise if they want to go on a rifle hunt for mule deer?
Rifle hunt mule deer, dude. Kaibab.
12A, 12B. That's it.
Okay. And then if a guy wants to do
and
archery.
The west, let me say, 12A is split into two units, west and east. Okay. There's an early hunt and a late hunt. Just straight up, the best hunt is 12A west late in November. Okay. That's the number one choice. And if you don't have a lot of points,
late too.
Yeah, 12B late's good. And then if you don't have a lot of points, go ahead and put in for the early hunt, 12A West early. I had 8 points myself this year. I didn't have another tag, across the West. I wanted to hunt mule deer. I had 8 points. I knew I was guaranteed the Kaibab. My daughter was guaranteed the late hunt. So I put in for the early hunt. I had a great hunt, had a fantastic hunt, had 200-inch bucks available to me. Just didn't see them during the day. They were watering at night, really hot. I had my grandkids with me. I killed a 170 class buck on at the end of last day of the hunt. I had opportunities to kill better bucks, but hey, it's a fun hunt. Yeah. It's a fun hunt. So there are early hunts that don't take as many points, and the late hunts on the Kaibab are taken almost max to guarantee the hunts. On the early hunts, you're looking at 8 or 9 points for the early hunts.
And you recommend the Kaibab for archery as well?
That's correct. Yeah.
And then,
I mean, if you're up there in points, obviously, if you're in max points, or you have to be at max points, or if you're dedicated, to go on the strip, definitely if you're looking for a 240 class buck plus, the strip is the place to get it done, and that's 13A, 13B, but pretty much just 13B. 13A is slowly coming back, but 13B is still putting down better mule deer than 13A is. Those units are, if you look at how many people are applying for those units over the Kaibab, they're probably about almost the same, but it's just they're issuing way more tags on the Kaibab, so your chances are 10 times better to pull a Kaibab tag. So So don't. It's not the best unit in the state, but if you've been applying for Arizona that long, you know what you're trying to do, and you're trying to draw the strip. It's like, yeah, it's the cream of the crop, but it's not nearly as you might see a mule deer every day on the strip. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But whenever you do see a buck, his age class is most likely going to be there. On the Kaibab, on the early hunt, you'll see a dozen bucks a day. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
On the you'll see 25 bucks a day. You know what I mean? So
okay, let's shift gears a little bit and tell me what is an elk hunting opportunity that is really, really undervalued in Arizona.
What do you mean undervalued? Easy to draw, or
yeah, like an air, because I think there's
a
units,
sleeper unit or a sleeper hunt that nobody's really looking at,
yeah,
or
that people don't apply for, but is a great fun hunt.
I think everybody wants to come to Arizona and hunt the rut. They want to hear screaming bulls. They want to hear bulls locked up. Those hunts you can do them in certain units if you don't have the amount of points. A late rifle elk tag is easier to draw. We've had plenty of people come. I think we had 18 hunters this year on the late elk hunts. They're super easy. They're not super easy to draw. They're easier to draw. The archery elk tags, they're like 11M archery bull tag is easy to draw. It's in city limits. It's not a preferred hunt. You're kind of hunting close to private property and stuff like that. But that could be a decent hunt to draw with minimum points.
I'll give you a couple. We have some November archery tags. Of course, they're not in the rut. Most people that want to hunt elk want to, bugling bulls in the rut. That's what makes elk hunting fun. But it's much like mule deer hunting. It's all spot and stock in November for elk. It's a tougher hunt with snow on the ground. It's almost impossible hunt, quite frankly. But this year there was no snow. It's hot. The elk were just pounding the water. It was a good hunt. And it's a pure spot and stock hunt. Those archery hunts in November are fairly easy to draw. They're the easiest archery tags to get in Arizona.
Like how easy to draw?
Well, let me look here real quick.
Every 3 years you could probably draw one guaranteed, but there's not very many people that put in for them. And if you have a dry, hot,
66% chance of draw versus the early hunt, it's 1%.
Yeah.
So there's your difference.
So how many bulls are all busted up by then?
This year there was a lot. This year
problem.
The rut was awesome in a good and bad way. They were busted up. They rutted way too hard. You always want a good rut, but it's like, come on, guys, fight nicely. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So but you're still chasing these big bulls. They're just a bit broken up.
Well, they're different, totally different animal. Of course, they're by themselves, maybe in a bachelor herd of 2 or 3 bulls together. They're not with the cows. They're not calling. They're harder to locate because they're bedded down in the trees. They're not, they're not vocal. They're not moving around all day. So it's a totally different animal, right? I mean,
I'm not gonna lie, dude. Spot and stock elk is way underrated. I think spot and stock in general is just a lot of fun. I mean, I actually feel somewhat empowered. Finding the animal's tough, but you put one to bed and you know where it's at, and you get to like put on your sneak. I think that there's a lot of knowledge as an archer that you gain from that even if you don't tag out, it's like valuable experience that you carry with you for that next hunt opportunity. 66% chance of drawing is pretty awesome as well. I also like hunting late season elk, and I like hunting in the snow.
there's really not much going on that time of year. But yeah, no, it's,
the difference is too. There's only I think 30 tags on that late hunt versus 100 on the early hunt. So it's a solo type hunt. I mean,
you have the whole unit to yourself.
Yeah, you got the place to yourself, and it can be a good hunt. Frustrating for some, but for folks that are just looking for an opportunity, and that's that's the best unit in the state, and it's 66% draw odd. You're not going to get that draw odd on any other hunt, and so that's kind of the underappreciated hunt, that November archery hunt.
After this podcast, that 66% is going to change.
And
Yeah,
there's
probably.
a handful of units, all right here around Flagstaff that provide a November archery hunt. It can be dynamite if the weather conditions are right. It can be almost impossible if the weather conditions are not right.
Okay, so back to point guard. A guy could do this, right, theoretically, and then use his point guard. And then if
keep his points.
If the season sucks and it's like one of those years that's not a great one, you can just say, yeah, I'm not going to do it. But if it's a hot one like you're talking about and the conditions are better, you could go in on that hunt, right? It's a strategy.
Yeah, there's one caveat that you ought to pay attention to on that point guard. You can only use it one per draw cycle. So in other words, that strategy works one time, but the next time you draw the tag is yours. You cannot give the tag back.
That's fair.
They try to eliminate any over abuse or whatever. So, but once you draw the tag, then the next cycle, then you can you got a point guard and you can use point guard. So once you get into 5 or 6 points, you probably want to do point guard. Use it wisely if you're going to use it. But that's one caveat with point guard. You can only use it once per draw cycle, if you will.
If there are people taking advantage of this system, point guard, and obviously, right, there's loopholes and everything. I'll give you a scenario. Should I tell them? They do. Most people, probably not most people, but anyways. So say that Brian wants to come hunt elk with myself, right? I got quite a bit of points. Say I got 10 points. You have 0 points, or you said you had actually like a few, whatever. But you actually put in with me. We both buy point guard, or I buy point guard, Kate. You put in with me. You get to use my points. I then use my point guard, but you got your elk tag. Do you see what I'm saying? So because in Arizona, if I have 10 points and say you have 2 points, we go into the draw with 12 points total. We split them. We now go in with 6 points. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's
you get your elk point. You get your elk tag. I then use my point guard. You paid me $1,000 to use my points.
Dang, you Arizona folks are just like, you're shady. Like this
is all we do.
But they can only do it one time.
So I only did it one time, but I also got my point that I was going to get no matter what. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I helped my buddy Brian out to come hunt elk in Arizona. I had to sit out this year, but I got my buddy Brian, his elk tag. He paid me $1,000. Actually, I've heard of a bunch of people getting, spotting scopes out of the deal and, rifles.
Well, actually, I mean, it's completely legal. It's part.
But I used my one time. So now whenever my grandma, or whatever
dies during season.
Good, yeah, like you can't use that anymore. You know what I mean? So
yeah. So you can apply on an application, but that's one thing that sucks about Colorado, I think, is if I go in on a party because I want to hunt with, let's say, my buddy Anthony, and I have 10 points and he has 5 points, I get knocked down to 5 points. We go into it with 5 points. Whatever's the lowest point holder in your party, that's what everybody gets.
Yep.
And I much prefer the method like Oregon, like Arizona, where they combine your points and you get the average of the two.
And what's cool at Arizona is we actually round up. So say you had 7 points and I had 4 points. That's 11 points, right? Well, you can't split 11 points. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we round up. So we would actually be going in with 6 each. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. That's okay. So very interesting. So then
another thing is if you come to Arizona and do Hunter's Ed, you actually get an extra point that will always stay with you. If you put in 5 years consecutively, you also gain another loyalty point. So you'd actually every year, if I draw an elk tag, I go in the very following year with 2 points.
Yeah, that's pretty powerful. I mean, you're talking about some of these units that take 3 points. You could draw that every other year. Basically.
You could get like this late archery elk tag. I could draw that every year. I could have that dang tag every year.
Yep. The doing 5 consecutive years to get that loyalty point. It doesn't start over once you draw. As long as you always apply every year, you will always get that point. And again, with the the archery hunter safety course, you get that point forever as well. So,
but if you miss a year, you lose that loyalty point.
Right, which I tend to have a problem with. So, yeah, I think that's a really, really important thing to note. Anthony's all dialed, so every year he has 2 points in Arizona, no matter what, which puts him way ahead of the next guy.
He should be charging you $1,000 to put in with him.
Well, we're gonna work on that. So that's pretty cool. So, okay, so I think we kind of covered a lot of this. If people really want to, pick your brain and get a strategy together, they can reach you. And one thing I wanted to mention was like on this late season hunt where there's a 66 chance of drawing this elk tag archery. This is something where you guys would guide for that.
That's right.
You would help a guy. You have your rates and all of that, and you
do a scouting package. If you don't have a bunch of money, there's plenty of options. I mean, our scouting package guys, most of them, actually every single one of them, could not believe how much detail and went way above and beyond what we said we were going to do. I mean, we want to see you be successful. Yeah. It's our number one goal. So, you can call us during your hunt, in the middle of the hunt. And if you're not calling me, I'm going to be calling you. So I want to be successful.
I remember the last time we published this podcast, you guys were on the phone and answering emails for months, and for free. Like you're helping people apply.
Yeah, make sure you send an email. Kevin is the email master. He is going to email you back. We have never not answered an email. So if you're going to send us an email, we will get back to you.
And to reach out, Kevin, what's the email they need to reach you at?
Yeah, email at shoot, so SHOOT, shoot at highpointoutfitters.net. Or they can go to our website, of course, highpointoutfitters.net. There's a contact deal there. You can do an email right inside there if you forget the email. So just highpointoutfitters.net. Shoot me an email. We'll try to do the best we can to get you in the loop make sure you don't miss application deadlines like Brian always does, and get you in the loop to make sure you'd have a good draw strategy year after year.
Okay, excellent. Any final thoughts? Anything you want to add? That's a great shirt, by the way, John. Stellar shirt.
It's a large.
You're just a buff guy.
Christmas got on me, man.
Didn't it, everybody, man? Yeah. Anything else you want to throw out there before we close?
Get out and hunt with us, Brian. Get your stinking tag and get out here and let's hunt again. Don't put in for put in for your normal unit you put in for, because it's pretty well toast now. But that's the thing is we keep current conditions and what units are good and hot right now. That's just not only our business, but it's our passion. That's what we love to do. So we keep track of all that stuff. If you've been applying for Arizona for, 7, 8 years, 10 years. I mean, things change. Unit 9 was a phenomenal unit 10 years ago. Well, it's not much of a unit right now. So, I mean, just stuff like that.
Yeah.
Just, pay attention and shoot us and make sure you have a good draw strategy year in, year out.
I don't even know if they put down a 400-inch bull in Unit 9 last year.
No.
I don't think they – and Unit 9 is like – if you look at the stats and how many hunters put in for Unit 9 last year, you'd been like, oh, dude, this is the number one unit. Dude, it hasn't been the number one unit for years. But people are so determined to draw a Unit 9 tag.
Well, they're living on old information. So, I mean, current information is critical in the hunting world.
Yeah.
Anybody that lives in the West knows that, certain units are up and coming and other units are falling. And it's just, the roll of the tide in the West. And so, anyway, make sure you have a good draw strategy here every year.
They put down one bull. I think they put down one bull.
Tell me, is archery javelina over the counter?
Draw.
It's draw, but they have a bunch of leftover tags every year.
So it could be both, but it's a draw, and then what left over you can buy over the counter.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Do you guys know much about javelina and where to hunt them and all that?
We do, but Brian, come on, dude.
Just curious. It'd be nice to fling some arrows at some pigs.
Hey, I'll sell you a scouting package, Brian.
Yeah, that's we do have a couple guides that will guide it. We fill up real fast because it's a fairly popular hunt, and of course, the easy one to draw. So it's not a unit or not a species that we spend a lot of time with, but certainly we can get you into some pigs if that's what you want to do.
Okay. We didn't talk pronghorn because they bore me. Randy Newberg is gonna hate hearing that, but
yeah.
That's one species that Arizona has some giants, but
dude, we put the best antelope during the general hunt in the statewide last year. 91 and 2/8. There was only one statewide hunter that beat us by 2/8.
Yeah,
so we almost put the best antelope down in the state last year.
You guys crushed the antelope guiding, but that's not an easy hunt to draw.
It's a tough draw. It's almost as tough as sheep. But let's step back. If you're going to spend $160 on a license, man, throw $7 at a chance at a hunt of a lifetime. Whether it's an archery hunt in 10 or 5B for an antelope, or a rifle hunt in 10 or 5B,
Unit 9.
Put some, throw $7 at a hunt of a lifetime. It's worth doing. I mean, and I get it. We're not big on antelope, and I've got a Boone and Crockett antelope on the wall. I hardly ever look at it. Right? It's like whatever. But they're unique animals. Fantastic mount on the wall. They're beautiful. They're fun to hunt once you get a tag, but it's a tough draw. But why not? $7 a chance. It's a hunt of a lifetime. Add that to your bucket list to come to Arizona and hunt antelope. It's worth doing if you can get a tag.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think one of the takeaways is if you're going to get the $160 license in Arizona, you might as well spend that additional $7 and going on lottery draw, like the chance of a lifetime on all those hunts. And if you don't draw, you don't draw. But $7 isn't much for that opportunity to your name's in the hat. I mean, It's in the hat.
And every year you don't draw, your odds just get better and better and better over time. So, why not?
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, guys. Thanks for joining me on the podcast. Thanks for sharing all your information. And those that are listening, go out. If you want to hunt Arizona, don't hesitate to reach out to Uncle Kevin and John and get a draw strategy figured out. And thank these guys because they do a lot of stuff for free, and I appreciate that. I don't have any problem sending people your way because I know you're going to treat them right, and that's important. So thank you.
Brian, thanks for having us. I know you're going elk hunting this weekend. Good luck tomorrow. That's sweet.
Yeah.
And enjoy time in the outdoors. That's what it's all about.
Yep. I appreciate that. All right, guys, stay in touch. Stay gritty.
Thanks, Gritty.
In 1907, only 41,000 elk remained in North America, and in 1950, only 12,000 pronghorn remained. Today, there are more than 1 million elk and 1.1 million pronghorn. Why? Because hunting is conservation. In 1937, hunters actually requested an 11% tax on guns, ammo, bows, and arrows to help fund conservation. That tax so far raised more than $8 billion for wildlife conservation. Altogether, hunters pay more than $1.6 billion a year for conservation programs. No one gives more. It's obvious that hunters care about animals, and yet we actively hunt and kill them. Many people cannot understand this dichotomy. How can we both care about animals and also kill them? It's a question that I challenge all of you to consider. Here is an excerpt from the Gritty Bowman film, Alberta, with a quote from Fred Bear that describes my feelings on this subject. The first shot on this buck was fatal, and it cleanly pierced his vitals, but he didn't go down. I hate to see animals suffer, and when possible, I will always shoot them again if I have the opportunity. I have tremendous respect for this buck and his will to survive. He didn't go down easy, and I have mixed emotions about that. At times like this, I am reminded of a quote by Fred Bear, which somewhat describes my thoughts on this matter. Quote, I have always tempered my killing with respect for the game pursued. I see the animal not only as a target, but as a living creature with more freedom than I will ever have. I take that life if I can, with regret as well as joy, and with the sure knowledge that nature's way of fang and claw and starvation are a far crueler fate than I bestow. I do not hunt for the joy of killing, but for the joy of living, and the inexpressible pleasure of mingling my life, however briefly, with that of a wild creature that I respect, admire, and value. We can argue as much as we like, but the fact is, hunting is man's oldest and most successful try at life. Every human being is alive today because our ancestors hunted. So it's a relatively new phenomenon for people to regard hunting as a cruel and frivolous activity that has no worth outside of personal gratification for the hunter. The funny thing is, hunting has increased my appreciation for wild animals and wild places, not decreased it. And as I watch society lose its ties to wildlife and conservation, I feel my bond with nature grow ever stronger in direct correlation to my time spent hunting. I understand now more than ever that hunting is the greatest hope for creating the next generation of true conservationists. Never stop sharing your passion for hunting in the outdoors. Our wild animals and wild places depend on it. As always, good luck on your hunts and stay gritty.
This is Ty Stubblefield, and you're listening to the Gritty Bowman.
Gritty Bowman.